Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachakudash. Double honors to my apostles, the great millstone, and peace and salutation to the hopeful members of the elect, the Bachariah of the house of David, that's been preordained, predestined to get delivered in these last times, and to be the ruling governing body of the nation of Yashala. And I want to go into a video from Dabu, all right, it's titled, Food Supply Chain is Breaking, Panic Buying Begins, Fuel Rationing and Water Restrictions Imposed. So I'm going to let him speak and go in on it.
Repercussions of this war with Iran being felt worldwide, and people are beginning to panic buy, and prices skyrocketing in different departments here. We obviously have the situation with oil at the forefront, and this is what many consider to be like lock one. This is what's sparking everything and has the whole fiasco in motion. But then on top of this, you have Russia and China stepping up as lock 2 and lock 3, both putting a stop to exporting things like ammonium nitrate, which is used for fertilizer. And then Beijing, the nitrogen, potassium, all the phosphate blends for the fertilizer. At the same time, they're strategically stopping this from going out worldwide as part of this war. The price of gas climbing.
Right, and I want to elaborate on that. There's a fertilizer shortage. That's because of that, what he just said, Russia and China, all right, and the Strait of Hormuz, what's going on, being partially closed, all right. Now there's going to be a fertilizer shortage crisis, okay. So I went to chat and I asked, what Dabu was speaking on, to go in on it a little bit, to break it down, elaborate it, all right. And it said, number one is plants need fertilizer right now, right? Okay, you need plants need fertilizer to grow, all right. Seeds planted earlier are starting to grow. They need fertilizer, especially nitrogen, at specific moments, or they won't produce much food. All right, now, what did he just say earlier?
At the same time, they're strategically and then Beijing, the nitrogen, potassium, all the phosphate blends for the fertilizer. At the same time, they're
China banned fertilizer exports. All right.
Strategically stopping this from going out worldwide.
Let's go back a little bit more.
Putting a stop to exporting.
Let's go back to.
You have Russia and China stepping up as lock 2 and lock 3, both putting a stop to exporting things like ammonium nitrate, which is used for fertilizer. And then Beijing, the nitrogen, potassium.
All right, so you just said Russia and China put a stop, all right, to these exports, bringing in ultimately fertilizer, all right. Russia stopped exporting key fertilizer, okay, and then of course what's going on in the Strait of Hormuz, fertilizer ships aren't getting through, okay. So let's let them keep going. And this is, well, actually, I can stop right there because he's going to go into the fuel, all right? So let me just keep going. It says farmers have a short window to feed crops, right? They miss it, crops grow poorly, and yields drop permanently, all right? Again, plants need fertilizer, okay? What this could cause, less food produced globally, higher food prices, possible shortages worse than COVID, panic buying, all right? So all this is strategic, okay? All this is strategic, all right? Let me just say how would fertilizer. It's lucky. Bear with me 1 minute. I just asked how it affects America. Um, higher costs for farmers. Fertilizer gets expensive or harder to find. Lower crop yields, like corn, wheat, etc., produce less if undurfed. Higher food prices. You pay more at the store. Yeah, see, so inflation is coming. Supply pressure. U.S. may rely more on limited local or alternative sources. All right, even if the U.S. makes some fertilizer, it still feels the impact because it's all connected globally. So you see? So let me just ask you one more. All right, so I asked, about, pertaining to the fertilizer, okay, where the U.S. gets fertilizer. The U.S. makes a lot of its own nitrogen fertilizer. It also imports places like Canada and Trinidad and Tobago, but you see China with them blocking exports fertilizer. All right, you said what, nitrogen and potassium, that's key ingredients for fertilizer. That's going to affect other world nations that need it. Okay. Again, America, it also imports from places like Canada and Trinidad and Tobago. Russia supplies some fertilizer to the U.S. China supplies very little directly to the U.S., all right? Why Russia and China still matter, even if the U.S. doesn't rely heavily on them, they are major global suppliers. When they stop exporting, global supply drops. Prices go up everywhere, including in the U.S. So bottom line, it says we don't depend heavily on them directly, but their shortages still raise costs and affect farmers here. Okay? You see? But all this is being orchestrated. All right? And soon, I can foresee it already. There will be a fertilizer crisis, because it says that we can get our own fertilizer. All right? It just said what we make a lot of our own nitrogen fertilizer, but also we get imports from Canada and Trinidad and Tobago. I can already foresee a fertilizer shortage crisis happening here in America. Okay, somehow, some way, something more trained enrollments. Yeah, all right, we had several of those. Okay, something's gonna happen. You just saw. I just did a lesson. The egg farm in Iowa burnt down, one of the largest. Okay, and then around the same time, the oil refinery, Port Arthur in Texas, caught on fire. All right, one of the largest refineries in the U.S., by the way. So all this is being orchestrated. But this is Second Ezra chapter 15, verse. I'll start at verse 11. But I will bring them with a mighty hand and a stretched out arm, and smite Egypt with plagues as before. This is modern day Egypt. All right, you can look at the back of your dollar bill. It has the pyramid. All right, this is spiritually Egypt and all those empires before. Babylon. All right. Okay. The Roman Empire. All right. America is all that. Okay. It's all of those ancient empires reincarnated. All right. But ultimately, this is the Greco-Roman Empire revived all over again. Okay, because Esau Edom is ruling. All right. And the first empire he ever had when he started to rule was the Greek Empire, then translated to the Roman Empire. And then once the Renaissance came about, that's when he came back into power. And that Roman Empire was revived all over again, that fourth beast, because we're still currently in that fourth beast, actually. We're still in that fourth beast our Lord Yahushua was born into, going back 2,000 years ago. It just had like a pause button, all right, and grew into into a dragon. But it says, see, the Lord's going to hit this place with plagues like as he did in ancient Egypt. All right. It says, with plagues as before, and will destroy all the land thereof. All right. Here's the point. Verse 12. Egypt shall mourn, and the foundation of it shall be smitten with the plague and punishment that the Most High shall bring upon it. They that till the ground shall mourn, all right, farmers, for their seeds shall fail through the blasting and hail and with a fearful constellation. So these farmers, their crops are gonna suffer, all right? Food shortage, that's coming, all right? And oil is already being affecting world nations, and you need oil for transportation, all right? So that disrupts, without oil, that disrupts, again, vehicles, but, ultimately transportation for food, goods, the whole supply chain breaks, okay? And then they're talking about, LNG, all right? Because that Strait of Hormuz is also affecting LNG, liquefied naturalized gas, which you need that for, ultimately that's used for energy and heat, all right? So we're talking about power plants, electricity, lights out type of situation. Okay, blackouts, which no coincidence, we just had one in San Diego out here. All right. So all this is being orchestrated, man. You see? All this is being orchestrated. All right. Also, LNG, powers manufacturing factories. All right. You see, so those two main elements, all right, oil and LNG, all right, they're not being exported. That's affecting the world economies, all right. So I'll let Dabu keep speaking.
All the phosphate blends for the fertilizer. At the same time, they're strategically stopping this from going out worldwide as part of this war. The price of gas climbing. This is how Iran is fighting back without missiles, hurting Donald Trump here on the home front because the price is rising. It's passing that $4 mark on average, which they label as politically sensitive. Donald Trump's latest approval numbers at an all-time low of 32%. As he keeps trying to go back and forth, and everyone can kind of tell he has no solid off ramp to end this whole thing. And then you have other countries going into kind of crisis mode of their own. Australia, panic buying, prompts the PM to reassure Australians that the fuel's going to be there and it won't go through the roof, but people are not believing that. They're going out in mass anywhere they can, and they're stocking up in mass, and the panic begins. When it comes to the fertilizer, the timing here is critical. It's spring. This is when all the farmers are getting their gardens going, getting their farms going. Right. And that can't happen for a lot of them if they don't have the fertilizers that they need. They're going to the Trump administration like, we need help. And Trump's trying to act like everything's going to be okay. Short-term pain, long-term gain is what they try to keep saying. But that's a bunch of garbage. Look around the world, and you can see people are feeling it big time. Japan getting hit in terms of its reserves. And other places have been selling their gold. That's why the gold pulled back, so they can buy other things that they don't have because everything's turning. Now, Japan and Trump are both saying that this could boost coal-fired power. Well, that's not going to help anyone throughout Appalachia in America that has coal that the government says you basically can't sell. They've shut down coal country, even when Donald Trump promised that he would revive it. Then you have India slapping taxes on fuel exports at the same time. All this going down and causing problems for surrounding areas. Like in Thailand, they're tightening the fuel prices. People are freaking out the same way. They're trying to go to the store and get as much gas as possible. There's shortages. They are rationing there now, fuel, as it begins. So rationing, this leads ultimately to flight cancellations, export limits, price controls, all because of the situation going down in Hormuz at the heart of it. It seems this is one bigger play, if you ask me, because it's advantageous.
Because the fuel rationing, they're, again, this is affecting flights, all right? You see, and this is all being orchestrated because when they bring this place down, collapse it, and they try to reopen, all right, as they're, through their newer order, they're going to tell you to take a chip, all right? First, it may not be mandatory, but soon he will, like the scriptures say, Revelation 12, verse 12, he's going to come down with great wrath. It will be mandated, it will be enforced to live within their society, All right.
So many world leaders out there that run countries, not to the people or anyone else. And then back here in America, look at what's going on with the drought. Big time. Weather warfare. All manipulated to the fullest. You've got it from the Rockies all the way down to Florida. Water alerts where people are being told, look, you have to restrict your use. Look at NYC and what they're trying to roll out. Power restrictions from 11 to 5, which many say it's gonna open a door to criminals big time. Like, something's happening, and it looks like it's planned. We told you energy lockdowns and all that is a real deal thing, and as everything else is rising, it looks like all that is surely on the way. Join me for the live streams.
Yeah, again, LNG, that powers, that ultimately, that's energy and heat, right? Gas, oil, that's transportation. All that's being affected, and that's affecting world nations right now, and it's gonna especially affect America. All right. So hopefully this was edifying. All right. On to the next one. Shalom.